G'day air racers. After cancelling the Melbourne event in May, this is what Byron Simpson, Paul Hewitts and I have been plugging away at for next year. The fixed date flying field Melbourne has been booked for weekend May 27th and 28th. That gives everyone 2 weeks to gain enough brownie points for not flying on May 14th. I've met a few brave men who fly on that day. Is it the brave man who flies on Mother's Day? Or has he struck the delicate balance between caveman and sensitive new age guy? There's a phrase that's way out of date. On the subject of being behind the times, my take on where we are as a group is to embrace change and not change and watch the racing scene slowly die. First and foremost, I'm not interested in conducting a pissy little event where pilots have to provide a pilot marshal or man the pilots themselves. Either we pay a service group for pilot marshals or use technology to reduce the number required. The first option costs money. The second could be as simple as making the pilots prove they ran to the pylons. I trialled that a couple of years ago. That could work. Pylon marshals with 2 sets of lights is my preferred option. The current entry fee provides a budget to purses, trophies, etc. Increasing to $100 and splitting it with the service club might get some interest, but I don't think $2,000 for a weekend would cut it. I don't think it's a sale I'd try and even make. A public display is the other option. So on that, the hobby scene, as most of us modelers, older ones, know, it has changed significantly the past decade. The chance of someone taking up AC flying and building a model from plans or kits is pretty much limited to the over 50s. And many that I've met in that demographic have either got young children or teenagers still in their hands. They've probably got the money, but they don't have the time, and it's cheaper to go ARF anyway. That's why this event's built around ARFs. And in some ways the aeromodelling scene is mirroring the way general aviation and the easier to obtain RAA pilot's licence has gone. For example, one doesn't need to know how to build a service assessment to obtain your full-size pilot licence. Electric foamies have been offering turnkey products for years, and businesses servicing the top end of RC are now springing up all over the place. You know, that top end of town is offering more RTF product these days. RPAS, commercial drones, have regulations below and above 2 kilograms. We have below and above 7 kgs. And there are modellers who perceive obtaining the heavy model permit as quite onerous and therefore stay out of that segment. I don't know why, but that perception is real. Conducting events has changed too. If the weather looks dodgy, people now get on social media to see who's still going. Then there's the expectation that volunteers will do all the hard yards to put on a show, but entry fees can be returned if the pilot changes his or mind willy-nilly. Yep, that exists today. In fact, getting people to pay the entry fee a few months ahead started getting harder 10 years ago. Regulation has tightened a bit too. I'm a member of the Northern Flying Group and PM Darks. It's 2 Melbourne clubs that own 100 acres. When I say Melbourne, I mean within 80 k's of the CBD. So a potential problem for racing aeroplanes orbiting the middle area of both fields is CAS's requirement that model clubs must obtain permission to overfly adjoining properties. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when either club's neighbours were asked. Most model club committee members I know endeavour to have a good working relationship with neighbours, which has so often been destroyed by one dickhead modeller with a bad attitude recovering his records. Correction, that would be wreckage. So for our 7 to 10 kilogram 250 kph racing planes, 100 acres is starting to look a bit on the small side. But at least we're not racing jets. Our planes don't take up much real estate to complete a 180-degree turn. Yet conducting traditional left-hand circuits of both of these fields, it's not a problem if permission in writing to overfly has been obtained and forwarded to the MAAA. If not, right-hand circuits will work quite nicely within the NFG's boundaries. PM Darks is a little bit tighter, but it can be done. That's just a general observation on that club. Anyway, inviting the public to pay to witness air racing puts an onus on the organisers to consider what the spectacle offers by way of entertainment. Close racing does that in spades, but not every race is close, so the commentator cannot keep talking that up. Attrition is another factor to be considered. Come Sunday afternoon, will there be enough serviceable aeroplanes left? This is where the tried and true formula of a mini air show at the end of each round comes in. So for next year, the PR blurbs and websites are good to go. Seagull ARF product is still available. To keep that possibility open, Paul Hewitson stumped up the cash to buy 6 Seagull Nemesis. I committed to 2 so I can enter a 2-plane team in F1. We've got 3 left at a special price. Later this year, the new Seagull rejig Nemesis and I believe Cassets will arrive in the country, and that product was launched in USA and Europe just recently. So the other project that's been on the back burner but it's going now is a Christmas issue of RCM News magazine. The idea is to raise cash for some prize money to rejig the racing scene. Having had RCM News efforts torched numerous times by old Fockers, I've waited to get our hands on another entity that can prevent that. In other words, we've got the racing club politics sorted. Last on the list is a place to fly to build a decent event, which I think will be okay now. If that gets too hard again, I'm just going to do what Dad and I did at 99 when I had my own flying field, get a paddock and have it laser graded. So for the balance of this year, Byron's got his hands full living with 5 women, so he's rather busy. Rumour has it he's fielding an all-female racing outfit next year. Well, that's the rumour I'm starting. Paul Hewitson is waiting for the Sydney flying fields to dry out, and I've put my racing ARFs aside to get some other models going. I'd like to attend a few must-see events. One is the Twin Cities Classic Models event late November. There's the huge glider weekend at Jerilderie next year, and I've got to get to one of those Sydney Rise Off Water days. So my Spitfire's been sorted, and I'll test fly that in the float plane this weekend down at Prophead Ted's down in Nicholson. When I get back, I'm going to spend a couple of weeks gearing up Dad's scratch-built Golden Era inline racer, and I'm going to start on that F100 and finish a traditional balsa and fiberglass build. And depending how I go with time, the 5-metre Fokker glider will be next, before I knock up the 2 F1s to compete at the Pointy End next year. And whether we can get a second big event going next year remains a work in progress. I'll hopefully have some news a bit later in the year. Anyway, that's where we're at, and please note these are my opinions. They are not the club's, not yet anyway, but we'll get to that and make some announcements a bit later. Anyway, remember, it's Bank and Yank. Cheers.